Welcome to Franchis' Franchising 101 podcast series. Here we talk about all things franchising. What is it all about? Is it for you? How do you find the best one to own? And so much more. Now your host, Tim Parmeter.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the latest edition of Franchis' Franchising 101 podcast. I am Tim Parmeter, founder and CEO of Francoach, and your podcast host. Today, we have one of our franchise partners joining us today, and we'll probably talk about their franchise a little bit, but we're really mainly focused on one of the most absolute imperative traits that leads to success as a franchise owner. And this is across any system. This is not something that typically people are going to put on their resume or their LinkedIn profile, which frankly is mostly science fiction anyway. But it is a trait that is absolutely crucial when looking at a franchise. And it's also crucial for a franchisor to see when they are vetting you. So small point, franchises are awarded. They're looking at you guys as well. So we're going to talk about that today. But first, before we get to that, let's do a quick reminder of who we are. Francoach is a national search firm dedicated to working with individuals who are interested in owning a franchise. We are partnered with well over 600 of the top franchisors in the country, spanning nearly 70 industries. Our goal is to help clients find the absolute best franchise for them to own. And the goal of the Franchising 101 podcast is to help educate people on all aspects of franchise ownership. All right, so that is us. Now let's get to the good stuff. And our guest today is the Chief Development Officer for Focal Point Business Coaching, the one, the only, Mr. Scott Hartsfield. Scott, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Tim. Appreciate you having me on today.
It is. It's been a long time coming, man. And we had the CEO of Focal Point on. We basically bumped you for him, I don't know, probably year and a half or so ago to talk about Focal Point, but just excited to have you on, my friend. Just you're one of the absolute best in the business, professionally and personally. So glad that you were able to make this happen today. So thank you for that. We've got a kind of an intangible but hugely important kind of trait, characteristic, quality that is key in franchise ownership. We want to talk about that, but this is a people business most importantly as we look at this. So you're going on the hot seat right off the bat, my friend. All
right.
Tell us a little bit about Scott and how did you get into this crazy world that is franchising?
Yeah. So as Tim mentioned, my name's Scott Hartsfield. I've been with Focal Point now for 12 years. I've been in the franchise industry from a recruiting standpoint for literally 20 years. And one of the ways I got to franchise recruiting was prior to this, I was in higher education. And in my role in higher education, I was running admissions departments. And in that role, we were influencing and helping others achieve their goals through education. And I got the tap on the shoulder. Someone said, hey, listen, I think you could use those same skill sets and traits and help professionals find their dreams and goals through business ownership. And so I got really excited about that opportunity. I love helping people. I love helping people navigate the waters of something that's unknown and helping to educate them in that journey. And so I took that step into franchise ownership. Fast forward to where we are today. I've invested into Focal Point as a franchisee. I've started my own business. So I'm a huge believer in entrepreneurship and business ownership and love helping people, really come into that life as part of their career through franchise ownership.
I think probably one of the things where you and I have always connected pretty well is that background in higher education, right? And just the giving people an opportunity to somehow to grow, to advance, to make their life better.
Right.
Does a better life involve more money? Right? Maybe, right? But that overall just, again, control, more options, all of those things, right? And so, and the cheesiness of the podcast being called Franchising 101 is literally, that's my background in the higher ed was the same thing. It's like, let's just teach people on something that they know nothing about, right? And so, though most people listening, when we first talk to them, they're probably like, me when I was in college, I needed the remedial classes before the 101, right? But I figured that was rude to call it Franchising 097. So we'll get to that. So I also want to give you a chance to talk about, give us a quick elevator pitch on Focal Point. And we had the pleasure, I mentioned CEO of Focal Point, Steve Thompson, was on, it's almost 2 years ago, episode 76. We've had two of our Fran Coach clients, now Focal Point owners, James Clark and Jeff Zach, who've also been on to talk about their experience with everything. So I'm sure everybody's very familiar, but in case somebody selfishly hasn't caught all the episodes yet, give us a quick little overview of what the heck is Focal Point business coaching?
Absolutely. So Focal Point is a business and executive coaching franchise. This provides, folks that have leadership experience, business experience, executive experience that want to utilize those skill sets to go out and help others in the business world. And so one of the first things that kind of pops into your mind when you consider that option is, what's it going to look like? What's my content going to look like? My process, my brand? How am I going to go to market? Focal Point provides a framework for people that want to use those skills and get into this space, but not have to create everything from scratch. So we literally equip all of our coaches that want to work with business leaders and help them in their business. We equip them with what they need to go to market. We equip them with what they need to coach a business. We equip them from a support standpoint. So, one of the great things about going into business for yourself is you get to be in business for yourself. You no longer have a boss. But sometimes that very same feeling is a little daunting, is you may feel like you are by yourself. And so one of the benefits of Focal Point is we provide a framework around support. So all of our coaches get mentorship, they get training and support ongoing so that they never have that lonely feeling in their business. So we've been doing this now for 20 years. I've been part of the Focal Point program for now 12 years and going. Just a great opportunity for people that want to utilize all of that executive experience and give it back into the corporate world. So that's just a little bit about Focal Point, Tim.
Love it. And the fact that you've been there as long as you have also, I think, speaks one of the many reasons or things about the overall culture of Focal Point. It's an awesome opportunity and just a great people, and people stay there a long time, whether it's owners, everybody within their company. I know there's a couple of back office people within Focal Point that been getting emails from them, basically, my whole time doing this as well. So I think that speaks volumes for this. And as somebody who owns a business that is not a franchise, and we're going to kind of talk through this a little bit today, that need for that training and support, when all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, what am I supposed to do here? That you have in the framework of a franchise, is that Focal Point service is hugely valuable. So love that. What we came on to talk today about is really, look, again, what's going to make a successful franchise owner? Because anybody looking at this is like, well, geez, what if I fail? Well, what are we really looking at? And I know one thing every franchise is going to say, probably the very first thing, right? Like, hey, we need you to follow the plan. And if may just help you, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't want to follow a plan, or I'm smarter than every friend, just stop yourself right now. This is not for you, right? Where do we go? Where do we go next? And I know for you guys, you talked about three things in particular that you really look for. So walk us through kind of those three things, and then let's hone in on the one main one for today.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a common question that comes up in the due diligence process is, what makes a successful franchisee? When people are looking at this, obviously you want it to work. And so you want to avoid any obstacles you can. And so there's really always, several things that you should do, but there's really three specific. And I think they apply not just to Focal Point, but they apply to really anything that you're going to approach, especially in the franchise world. One of the things that I love about franchise ownership is that it puts you in the driver's seat, right? You now have control, but it also means that you actually have to do something. All right. You're equipped, you have support, you have tools, you have a framework, but it still requires you to drive. You can't just sit there. And so there's really three things in my 20 years that I've seen that's really helped so many coaches move to the top quartile, be very successful in their franchise. Number one is confidence, right? You need to be confident in who you are and what you bring to the table. Confidence, like Tim said, doesn't mean that you're the smartest person in the room. It doesn't mean that you have all the answers. It just means that you're confident in who you are and you know your work ethic. You know, hey, if I'm presented with this opportunity, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put forth my full effort into this. That's confidence, right? You have to have that. Number two is exactly what Tim talked about, is you have to follow the process, right? Franchising is just a industry term for system and process. That's really all it is. You're buying into something that's proven. It's a system. There's a process. So obviously, if you follow that process, there's a high degree of success in your business, right? And then the third thing that I really, talk to a lot of coaches on is taking action, right? You actually have to put forth the effort. That's one thing I love about this, again, is you get out of it what you put into it. Put in a little, get out a little. Put in a lot, get out a lot. And having that control. And it really takes all three, right? You can take action without following the process. You may find yourself in the weeds, right? They really all three kind of go together. So in my experience, it really kind of lives in those three different pockets, Tim.
Yeah, and when you think of that, the kind of that confidence piece is one of the things that we go through the process with folks is I always use the phrase that's the get out of bed test, right? Like you're the one's got to get your butt out of bed every day and go do this. What are you good at, right? And finding that best franchise to own is so different than finding that next job or anything else, right? It's because it tends to be kind of reverse engineered. What are you good at? Right. And when you look at those things from a franchise standpoint, then you're like, oh, okay, I can follow the plan. I can get behind this. And then be able to really kind of, again, take action, put forth that required effort with this. And really, I think that effort is the piece that I want to talk about today, because it could be something that is a semi-absentee business where your effort required is 10 to 15 hours a week. Right. But you still gotta do it, right? And put forth that, or, I was kind of equated to education, right? So the phrase everybody knows is, C's get degrees. I can bust out my undergrad transcript, pop that up here, and prove that C's do get degrees, right? If that's your goal, then that's fine, right?
Right.
If you want to pay your tuition and flunk out, not do a thing, not go to class, not do anything, I got a couple of buddies from back in the day that prove that theory well. If you want to flunk out, you have the ability to do that. But if your goals are more, right? You want to be straight A's, you want to be valedictorian, honor roll, that's a little bit more effort to it. And it's really that same thing as a franchise. I know in your system and in every system, there are franchise owners that aren't top performers that are just some of the happiest people in a system. That's okay too, but they still had to take the required action and the effort to get there within that system, right? So
good. Yeah.
For you, as you're looking at candidates, what are some of the things that you're able to kind of hone in on to determine, hey, does this person really are they really going to put forth the effort to make this happen? What are some things that you kind of look for along the way? Hey everyone, I wanted to take a quick break from our podcast to tell you about our amazing friends at Entrepreneur. If you're looking to become a franchisee or simply learn more about business ownership, and guys, let's be honest, you're listening to the Franchising 101 podcast, so we know you have some interest in this. And I really encourage you to go to entrepreneur.com to check out all of their great content and resources. Seriously, Entrepreneur has everything, all the way from a bookstore to the best podcasts, webinars, and videos, plus information on upcoming events and the latest articles that seriously, they cover all aspects of franchising and business ownership. If you're having trouble deciding which franchise is right for you, start with Entrepreneur's renowned Franchise 500 ranking, which highlights the best franchises of 2022. For 45 years and counting now, Entrepreneur has been and continues to be the most widely recognized and respected authority in the franchise market. Digital and print subscriptions are available, so you never miss out on anything. So seriously, what are you waiting for? Go to entrepreneur.com right now and learn more.
Yeah, good point. So one of the things you mentioned earlier is culture, right? So Focal Point specifically, we are very strong on culture and folks fitting our culture. And one of the things that we can, we're an abundant mindset culture, right, versus a scarcity culture. So we're looking for people that are entrepreneurial, folks that want to grow and take steps forward as opposed to worrying about what they can't control. And so one of the things that we really guide our folks to is when you get to the finish line, you're going to be excited that you found the right business, and you're also going to have a little bit of nervousness going on. We will tell you, still take the first step. It's going to be a scary first step, but taking that first actionable step is one step closer to where you're going to be. I think back to when you first started, franchising the podcast 101, right? And a lot of folks see where this is and the success that you're having today, but they don't want to take that very first step to get there, right? Because it's unknown.
Yeah.
One of the things that my coach, I have, all of our coaches at Focal Point have coaches, and my executive coach said, you have to get comfortable with being incompetent in whatever you're going to do for just a little bit, right? And at first I thought he was calling me incompetent, right? But then I realized, that he might be some truth in that.
He may have
been. But I realized that sometimes that's why we drag our feet. It's because it's unknown. We don't know how to do the thing yet. And we can't allow that, incompetence to prevent us from taking that major next step, which could change our entire life. Like when you started doing this podcast, have you run something like this before?
No.
Right. And now
I hadn't even listened to a podcast before I started this. So yeah,
right.
No, absolutely
not.
not.
And so it's really just getting comfortable with being a little bit uncomfortable. And that goes back to having the confidence, right? Just, your work ethic, that if you're going to do it, you're going to do it great. So I always tell folks to listen, make sure that, our business and our culture aligns with the things that matter to you. And then when you're talking to our coaches and you're validating with them, see if you see yourself in them. If these are your people and we're about the same things that you're about, that you're in the right company, right? And then the key thing that all of them will tell you is it still takes you. So we're looking for people that are entrepreneurial. We're looking for people that want to be part of a team. We're looking for people that are bought into the same, mission and vision and values that we're part of. Those things make up the fit for me.
Yeah, no, and I think the true X factor in franchisee success, and everybody has a different version of what success is, right? But the X factor is you as the franchise owner, right? Like, are you going to follow the plan? Or are you going to put forth the required effort, right? Finding the best fit, like, shameless plug for Fran Coach, like nobody finds the bad fit when we're working with them. That's our job is for that. But from there, you want to become a franchisee of Focal Point or whatever franchise and not follow the plan and be lazy, like I can't help you, right? And even the franchise, only to a certain point can you help them. But I think there's that mentality, especially people that have been in the corporate world, that are frustrated with the lack of control over decisions made above them, right? Or around them, whatever. But then you have to think with the old phrase, like, the buck stops here. Like, okay, do you really want that? And when it does stop with you as a franchise owner, like, what are you going to do? Or are you going to freeze up? Right? Are you going to worry that you're not 100% sure of what to do? Or do you want, like, but when the game's on the line, do you want the ball? Right. To be able to do that. Right. And so I think that's a huge piece of this as well. And then I think in some ways the franchisors can be almost like weirdly to blame for lack of effort, because, and you guys are no different than almost every franchise, the amount of support can be overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, look at all of the things that this franchise has in place for me. Like, oh, let me kick my feet up on the desk and wait for Scott and Focal Point to make my phone ring to rain down millions of dollars on me, right? Like, yes, like, and probably more so a consumer-focused franchise than a business-focused franchise, but the franchise is going to do things to make your phone ring. They're going to have all of these things in place for you, but like at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to get your butt out of bed to go do that. And I know how much support you guys offer and have for your franchise owners. How often do you run into that where it's like, oh crap, we're actually giving like like there's too much, we're basically like entitling our children with that, right? How like is that a real thing for you guys?
It is. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's that we kind of play both sides as how much is too much. We want to make sure that they never feel like they're on their own, but we also have to remind ourselves that they own their own business, right? And so we have to also make sure that as we're onboarding and coaching these new franchisees, that they're equipped, but they also know what their part in their role is. One of the things that we try to do to reduce that overwhelm is let them know that you don't need to do everything, right? Focus on a few things that you can do really, really well and do them consistently really, really well. And let's support you in those ventures. And I'll give you an example. One of our coaches that recently joined us about 6 months ago, he started going to BNI to network and market for his business. And when he first started going, he wasn't really getting any traction, right? And he wasn't really finding, he was like, I've been 4 times, I haven't got any leads. What's going on? And we were able to coach him in that, right? And say, hey, listen, that's not how BNI works. Let's maybe change how you're doing it, and changed his approach. And now he's getting more traction, getting more out of it because he's doing it right. And so, what sometimes we'll do is just throw our hands up. BNI doesn't work, right? And then we'll just go look for something different. But what we do is just try to really get to support and help you and focus on just a few things, right, that are going to help point you in the right direction. And one of the things that I'm always telling coaches is you always have to remind yourself almost daily why you do this. Like, why am I here? Why did I decide to go into business for myself? Why did I choose Focal Point? And sometimes you need those reminders more often than anything. And it'll remind you, okay, this is why I'm doing this BNI. This is why, I'm following all of these different processes. And so it's just kind of a balancing act of just keeping them. And that's why it's a family. That's why when you choose a franchise, you want to choose a place that's really going to have your back and protect you, tell you the hard truths, right? And also be there for you, and not over be there for you, but also meet you 50-50 where you need to be.
So hold on a second. So you're telling me it's not super easy, and I start a franchise and I just immediately become a millionaire? I don't just like turn on one marketing thing and it just like my phone rings off the hook? Are you kidding me? What the heck? I gotta work.
Take time.
So
yeah.
It is, and I think that's the piece is like, again, when you really get to that point where it's a like, man, this looks like this is a great fit. I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
It's still hard work, right? And you have to put forth the effort. And just because you turn on a marketing channel, right? Or you walk into a BNI, like, all right, everybody, I'm here. Like, who's got leads for me?
Bring on the leads.
I don't know what am I doing for everybody else here, right? Or just again being present and trying to enjoy that. How do you see that fear like through the process before they even become a franchise owner? What are some things where you see where that fear really kind of bubbles up of like, back to the confidence? Can I do this? And let's be honest, not everybody can nor should. But what are some of the maybe kind of common things where you see people working through this process where that kind of fear creeps in of, do I have what it takes to make this happen?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Imposter syndrome is real. I've talked to what I thought candidates, probably the best of the best resumes and everything, and they have it also. Like, why are you discounting what it is? And I think the reality is we don't realize, sometimes the true capability that we have. Sometimes people will see it in us, but we don't see it in ourselves. And so in our due diligence process, we really try to pull that out and really help them understand, where their true gifts lie, how they can use those gifts to help others, even if they don't see it themselves, right? Most that are joining franchises are coming from a job. They're getting a check every other week, and they're making a decision to no longer get that check, invest and go the other direction in hopes that it's going to work. That is scary, right? And so, in my role, even in higher ed, right? It's like, okay, you're investing all of this tuition in hopes that you can get a great job, right? It's helping you to understand the value of what this system, this investment is going to give you, that's going to help you manage that fear, right? You want to have that fear. I always tell everybody that fear that you have right now, once you invest and you get in on the other side, it's going to turn into motivation. It's going to turn into motivation, right? So it's healthy fear. You want to have that because it means you care. It means you really want this. And it means that you're going to take it serious. And so my role in the due diligence process is making sure that when you're talking to coaches, talk through that. Like one of the steps that we do in our process is we ask our candidates, tell me how you're feeling right now. What's on your mind? What fears are you feeling at this moment? We hear things like selling, credibility, leaving my job, going out on my own. And let's talk about it. Let's break each of those apart and let's talk about how you're feeling and what we can do to help you. It doesn't mean that everybody will work their way through it. Some folks find out at the end of this process, they're not built for this, and that's fine, right? I tell every single person when we start this process, I've been doing this for 20 years. I tell everybody, you owe it to yourself at a certain time in your career to take a serious look into business ownership. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but you absolutely owe it to yourself to take that look. And a lot of the folks find out, wow, I'm so glad I did this. I wish I would have done this 10 years ago, right? And they work themselves through. And it's just that first year. You'll get through that first year and it'll be a blur 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And you just got to take that step towards it. So we just support them in the process and have those conversations up front.
That imposter syndrome thing to me is almost almost a sign that is the right thing, right? That there's a touch of humility in there versus I'm the arrogant SOB. I know more than everybody. Like that's right. Probably not somebody that's going to be super successful. But if you actually have the self-awareness enough to go to just take a moment to kind of maybe have a little doubt and then reassess, can I see myself doing this? Are these the people I want to be around all day long? Right. Right. So I think there's a little, I love the cheesy analogies, but I kind of like dating, right? As you're going through and you're a candidate and you're looking at a franchise and vice versa, right? And so you and I are pretty similar on this in that we have amazing wives. They are smart, beautiful, fantastic human beings. And the other thing we have in common, our wives both overachieved with us, right? Yes. So since neither of them are going to listen, we can get away with saying that. And everybody else, it's totally true. But if you're going through that process of okay, am I going to ask this person to marry me? Well, number one, are they going to say yes? Right. And then even so, there's a little I think this is the right person. But even then, there's the honeymoon, right? And then crap gets hard, man. Right. Yeah. And you have to put forth that effort. But is this the person? Are these the people I want to be around day in, day out? If so, again, follow the plan, put forth the effort, right, with this. Yeah. And it's okay if that's not the right thing, right? But I think that's huge as you...
No, it just, you nailed it on the head, with dating and making that, because you're making a potential lifelong commitment. I remember my wife and I got married. One of the things that I told her when we were, considering getting married, I say, hey, listen, this has to work. We're not going to do this and undo it down the road, right? This has to work. Right. And there's a guy I know by the name of Tim Parmeter that also told me that same thing when he started his business, right? This has to work, right?
Hold on.
Okay,
hold on.
There you go. So, is this the original?
Yeah. So when I started this, since you're going to out me on this, I didn't know the first dang thing about franchising, and some would say I didn't know the first dang thing about anything, but I knew how to at least talk to people. And I'm sitting in my, this is almost 9 years ago, literally sitting in my apartment, and I had my kitchen table. Half of it was my office and the other half's where I ate, right? Separation of food and work, basically. Right. And so I'm having just a miserable day. I'm oh my gosh, this is not gonna, and I was my kid who's being amazingly quiet in the other room, like he was kind of the reason for this, and I didn't want to work for anybody. And I'm like, I just wrote down on a piece of paper, like literally, and then colored it. Like, I don't know if anybody can see this if you're looking at it, but it's literally THTW. And I'm a fantastic artist, by the way. And so I was just like, this has to work. And it was just taped up on the wall. And then I sensed like it's on a frame and it's on the next to the wall. And then 9 years in, and there's still days where I'm like, right? Like, you get, something goes, like crap still goes wrong. And there are still those things, but you're like, but hey, this has to work. This is am I in the right situation, doing the right things, all of that. And that's, and with a franchise, like the things that I'll struggle with for Fran Coach is like, this is just like, I got to figure it all out, right? I don't have, maybe I need a focal point, like coach to coach me, but I don't have that franchise system around me to help support. But it's hard, people. Like, I don't like, it's going to sound amazing. And again, that's why I like that dating thing, because it's hard. Like you've got to put forth the effort at it to be successful. Right. So, no, I like that a lot, man. And so thanks for calling me out on my thing, but,
and I'll just give you one more on that, because part of this process, when you go through the due diligence with the franchise, part of it, you're talking to owners, right? And you may be talking to an owner that's a year in, 2 years in, 5 years in, and their business is already set, and you want that, right? But what you have to uncover is what they went through to get there, right? We often just want to fast track everything. We live in this Amazon culture where we can have everything right away, and that's just not the case. You got to put in the work. Everyone will tell you that first year, it's blood, it's sweat, it's tears, but it's so rewarding because you built it. Take pride in what you built. Like you talked about, sometimes you look up and you're like, this is tough. When you can remind yourself why you did it, it re-energizes you as to what you're going to go do that day. So, it is tough work, but it's always worth it in the end, especially if you put in the work. So,
yeah. And I can't thank you enough for all of your time here. I want to throw one other question at you. Sure. From effort, but also on that fear side, because it just popped into my head, and I'm throwing this at you blind because we didn't talk about it. What happens when that fear rolls over to the spouse? What are some things that people are able to do to kind of help with that? Right? Maybe I'm feeling a little bit better, but I'm not sure about my better half over here. To again understand that effort, because even if a spouse never works a day in a business, this is a family business, right? We've got to have that, kind of that joint buy-in. So I don't come home one day being a focal point owner, man, it was an awful day, and then here's Danielle over there going, I told you not to do that, right?
Right.
Or the other way around, Danielle, I told you not. Like, what are some things from your standpoint where you've seen that are helpful to kind of alleviate some of that fear, to understand the effort that's going to go into this?
Yeah, that's so good. That's so in my experience, and this is directly tied to confidence also. If your spouse supports you, it increases your confidence. It gives you that extra confidence that you need, because you have someone also that's supporting you in this. And so the best way to do that is bring your spouse in early in the process. Get them involved in the process. It's going to be very difficult for you at the very end of this to have a quick 45-minute dinner conversation and explain to your spouse, hey, this is what I've been doing for the last 6 weeks, and I think I want to do this business. And they don't know anything about it. And very likely, they don't even have the skill set to do your thing. So they're more scared than you are, because they don't even know how to do that thing, right? And you're too new, too green to sell it properly, right? So in my experience, right, get them involved in the process early on. Have those conversations, have those honest conversations, and get them involved in the process. We always encourage every single spouse to come to our Discovery Day. And the Discovery Day is a chance to meet the entire leadership team, see how it all works. And so that also gives you just a great opportunity. But get your spouse involved sooner than later to really get that buy-in from the very beginning.
Yeah, no, it's one thing I don't think people realize is this is not a job interview. So if the spouse wants to be in every single call, that's okay, right? You show up at a job interview like, hey, do you mind if my wife sits in on this? It ain't gonna go well, right? Like, it's better to bring in my mom sit in the interview. Like, no.
Right.
But for this, again, it is key. And even if it's something that's, maybe they've got their stuff going on too. Maybe they can't be involved, but we've narrowed it down. Hey, I really think it's focal point. And then have her get on a call or something, or him get on a call. And one of the things I always tell is recommend the spouse ask is if I'm the candidate and I'm looking at focal point, I would want Danielle to ask Scott, okay, well, why do you think my husband's going to be good at this? And they're going to Scott's going to walk through, well, Tim's good at that, all these things that we really look for. And it's going to give the spouse confidence going, you'll start to get spousal pride. They're going to know what, he's really good at that. The spouse is going to go, what the hell has he been telling you? He's terrible at all of those things. He's been lying the whole time. Right. It just, when you understand what it takes to succeed, and you can kind of go, oh, that's me. Here's why somebody would fail. Yeah. It helps a ton. So that involvement, whether they're on the calls or not, but you ignore the problem and hope it works out at the end. Let me help you. It won't.
Oh, it's going to stay there.
Awesome, man. Scott, I cannot possibly thank you enough for coming on to chat with us today and really talk. I think there's all the different things that possibly come up along the way. Understanding that the effort, some of the ways to understand, can you do it? And again, this ain't easy at the beginning, folks. It's going to take hard work. When you find the right fit as far as the franchise, and the right people that you're around, it makes it a heck of a lot easier. But it's not kick your feet up and wait for the $1,000 bills to rain down. If so, I'd own 10 of those and I wouldn't be doing this podcast anymore. So again, it takes some effort, but Scott, man, I appreciate you coming on and chatting with us today about all of this.
It's been a true pleasure. And I'll tell you, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about, franchising for yourself, Tim and his team are fantastic. Everything that we talked about today, he will uncover with you one-on-one. He's really, really good at what he does. He's helped us find some amazing coaches at Focal Point that we're so thrilled to have, that we would not have today if it weren't for Tim and his team. So if you're listening to this and there's something that kind of stood out, I highly encourage you, take that first step we talked about. Have that initial call with Tim. It may be a little daunting and a little scary just to have that first call, but I would encourage you to take that first step, because you owe it to yourself to take a real look into business ownership. So thanks again, Tim. I appreciate the opportunity.
No, and thanks for doing my job on the wrap up of the podcast. So that was awesome. So you did forget to mention francoach.net, franchising101podcast.net. There's never any fee for our service. So seriously, what the heck are you waiting for? Reach out and let's help you create your better tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Francoach's Franchising 101 podcast, where our ultimate goal is to help educate you on all things franchising, so you can create your better tomorrow.